It's time for the Engaged Club, the podcast for club managers and operators that strive to create loyal and connected members, guests, and customers. Here are the two guys with the club management and digital marketing advice you need to realize your club's potential. Jim Hope and Roger Kincaid.
Welcome back to another episode of the Engaged Club podcast. This podcast is supported by the Canadian Society of Club Managers. Hello, all you Canadian club managers and club managers from all around the world. I'm Roger Kincaid. I'm the marketing guy from Off Course Golf, and you can see our website at offcourse.golf.
Roger, I am Jim Hope, and I am the GM of the Derrick Golf and Winter Club in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. What's happening, Mr. Kincaid?
Oh, man. You know, it's just another bright, sunny day here in podcast land, and all I care about is making clubs easier to operate with really cool current technology. And I know you want to talk about that very thing right now.
Funny how you brought that up, Roger, because that is exactly what I want to talk about today. Now, all of these technologies that I want to talk about, and this is, I'm in your space here as well, Roger, with this. So I apologize up front for, jumping into what you do. But so let's make this a bit of an interactive conversation.
Well, absolutely. And I want to say too, this is not a pitch, because I'm really interested in hearing from your side of this. You're right. I am definitely a vendor of technology, and you're a user of it in your club. So I want to hear your side of things.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. And I'll tell you what brought this podcast on, or this idea on for today, was I had finished reading the 12 Golden Keys to Hospitality Excellence by F.H. Benzicourt. And Frank is actually going to be on our podcast in a couple of weeks. He's a club manager from Eastern United States, and he wrote this great book on hospitality. And one of his chapters, I think it's chapter 11, it was Innovate or Die. And it was about, embracing technology at your club. And, you and I have played lots of great clubs across Canada and the United States. And, some of the clubs that we might go into in the Palm Desert area, which are really high-end, well-aged clubs that are very traditional. Some of these technologies, if they're in the front of the house, might not work, but it doesn't mean that the back of the house can't embrace all of those things that make the job easier for the team, which allows them to provide a better hospitality experience for the members. Mm-hmm. So here's some of the thoughts that I had. And so again, not all of these we're doing at our club, but some of them we are. We just switched to a biometric hand scanner. Up until that point, we had the old time clock, right? You put your card in, it said 7:02, and then you put your card in again, and it said 3:02, and we paid you for 8 hours. And we don't know if it was actually you who was punching it at 7:02. We got a big club. We have 220 staff at our club. And our staff work 24 hours a day. So we've got folks that are starting at 11 at night and finishing at 7 in the morning. And there's not a senior manager in the club to actually make sure they were in the club. Then we'd have to take these cards and somebody would add them all up and staple a calculator piece of paper to it. And then somebody would take all those cards and input them into a computer system, and we do payroll. Whereas now with this biometric system, they're all automatically updated. The manager needs to go in. They look at a spreadsheet. It's got Jim. It's got Monday. He clocked in at 7:02. He clocked out at 3. He clocked in at 4 the next day. He clocked out at midnight. And they just verify that those times are correct. It has to be Jim who's punched in, because it's worked off of about 300 points on your 5 fingers.
Yeah.
And then it's automatically, once you say yes, then it's automatically updated into the payroll system.
How long have you been doing that?
We just got our 4th department on it last week, and we'll get our last and 5th department on it in the next payroll cycle. So really, we just embraced the technology about 6 weeks ago with FMB.
Okay, it's amazing to hear you tell the story that way, because you just told a story about efficiency and accountability,
right?
And that should have a tremendous impact on how your staff approach their position at the club, but also it should save you a lot of money. It should save you a lot of money and a lot of time.
I'm hoping it does both. Time was the big one at first. Mm-hmm. And I think the spinoff, which we all recognized, was that there was going to be a money savings from it as well. And I liked the comment you made was the big one for us was accountability. We want to make sure that everybody who's working gets paid for when they're working, and those that aren't working aren't getting paid when they're not at the club. There was a security issue for us with this as well. So, and it as any new technology, when you introduce it, there was some hiccups at first, but it's virtually seamless right now. We put a point person in each department who put everybody into the system, who does the training. And then we also have a front desk staff that is manned, 17 hours a day. And they're the go-to for anybody who can't, if they have an issue and their department head or their department lead isn't there who's running the system, they can go to the front desk and they'll help them with it. So,
right.
I'm
cool
really happy with, what it's done for us so far. And once we get the final department on it, I think it'll continue to bring dividends for us from a cost savings and, to your point, accountability.
Right. That's a great story, man. Sorry, bang off a few more here.
Yeah. And I'm really, the next one is one that I can't believe we're not doing more of. We've got our golf shop just went on it this year. We had done it before, and then some departments liked it and others didn't. And that's an app-based schedule. There's, probably 30 different companies out there that have got schedules that you would run off your desktop, but it's push notifications out to your team for their schedules. So, all of our teams all of our team, period. I'm not going to put an age to it. I'm not going to put a gender to it, are all on their smartphones. Mm-hmm. They love the idea of getting the schedule delivered to their phone, as opposed to an Excel spreadsheet that they can't read from their phone or that's posted in the lunchroom for them to see. It allows them to make schedule changes that the balance of their department can see. So if you're a back shop kid at our club, you can send out that, hey, I'm working next Friday from 4 till 12. I can't make my shift. Does anybody want to pick it up? Harry says, yeah, I'd like to pick up your shift. Your supervisor has to approve it before that change is made. But once they approve it, the change is made. The schedules are all changed. Everybody's schedule is changed. With Frank now taking over Harry's shift. And, Harry knows he's got the day off and his shift has been covered. We're able to do budget schedule projections from a dollar standpoint. So when you do your schedule, it automatically does a budget projection for you. So you have an idea what your labor cost is going to be. And if you're meeting your budget, you can make adjustments if you have to. You're able to see different who's all working in different shifts. You can look at what your pay is for each of these people. So if you need to adjust by somebody maybe who's at a lower pay scale, you can do that if you want to. You can determine what impact a stat holiday schedule is going to do, and you can make your adjustments because the pays are already in there and it knows it's a stat holiday when it's doing the schedule. And the big one it did for us, and this is simple, Roger, you talk about it with your app and push notifications, but so my superintendent at the last club I was at, who would be the least technological person you've ever met, and he would admit it if you talk to him, embraced this app-based schedule wholeheartedly, because you know what it allowed him to do? It allowed him at 5 o'clock in the morning when he arrived at the club, and we had 2 inches of rain overnight, and the course was going to be closed. In a simple message, he sent out to 32 people, hey, course is closed today, don't need you this morning.
Right.
So all of those employees who were all on their phones, instead of having to try and call 32 people or have some people show up, and then we're by law obligated to pay them for 3 hours, he was able to send a push notification to their bed, which is where their phone was, right beside them on the pillow, and say, hey, stay home today, which is what they probably would want to do, and not come in, and he knows it's done. And then there was also a notification that he would get back to say that was read, so that he'd know that the people had seen it.
Right.
Pretty simple, right? I mean, it gives you budgeting considerations, it gives you forecasting considerations, and it gives you the ability for your team to be able to see their schedule in a format that they want to and be able to make changes that you approve without you having to make those changes for them. So
have you got any more technological opportunities that your club has realized?
Yeah, we do. We're doing pre-authorized payments. So 75% of our members get their statement on the 3rd of the month. And on the 20th of the month, assuming that there's no changes, we just pull that money out of their bank account. You don't have to send me a check. You don't have to come in with a check. You don't have to do an online banking with it. We just pull it out of your account automatically. People are loving that. And it's easy for us, right? Other that clubs are doing, one of the clubs in our market, so the company that they're using is based out of New Jersey. They got a drone that sits on the top of their clubhouse. Every night that drone flies the whole golf course. And I don't know what the technology is that it uses, but it's able to determine the moisture content of the golf course all around the course. Mm-hmm. So in the morning, the superintendent comes in. He goes on to the program on his desktop in his office. He sees areas of his course that are maybe too wet. He sees areas that are too dry. If they're too wet, maybe he wants to restrict carts in those areas for the day. Maybe he's got an irrigation issue that a head's staying on longer than it should and it's overwatering, or he wants to turn that head off the next night because there's enough water there. Or there's an area where a head should have come on, but it's dry. Maybe the head didn't come on. Maybe he needs to overwater that area. But he can do water management, especially for those clubs that are purchasing water. It's so important that if you can manage your water, and more importantly, you're really managing the playability of your golf course and the turf, the care of the turf and the health of the turf on your golf course. And that drone lands back on the roof, recharges itself, and then flies out the next night.
Right. Yeah, that's so cool. So, to just kind of, if I may jump in here, I mean, you've talked about some really interesting and very innovative, and I'd say cutting edge applications that you can use at your club. That biometric hand scanners. You're talking about scheduling applications so that your staff know, when they need to be at the club or when their shift's been rained out. In the case of your superintendent, this drone now that flies around. I picture the general manager, and I've been in these meetings a lot, Jim, where I'm sitting across the table from somebody who just doesn't want to be sold another thing, right? And I urge general managers that are listening to this, I urge any manager listening to lean on your vendor a little bit for the outcome. So instead of thinking about the product, what's the product that I'm buying here? Lean on that vendor and ask, what's the outcome that I'm buying here? And you know what? Ask that question early. They're going to give you a sales pitch. They've rehearsed it. Trust me, all these vendors, if they're worth their salt, they're going to be good salespeople that are going to try to get to know you a little bit better and figure out how their product or their service fits with your club. But if you just kind of, put your hand on the table right off the bat and say, Jim, what's the outcome that I'm getting with this biometric hand scanner? Talk to me about that. And that turns the conversation into what the real benefit to your club is going to be. And keep in mind, a lot of times I think that we don't lean on our vendors enough. I certainly, I purchase software and I purchase applications that we use in our business as well, Jim. And I call these people up. The person that sold it to me, I call them up and I say, look, I need this to do this for me. And how can I get 90% more than I'm getting right now out of this product? Is there a way that I could maximize or optimize what I'm currently doing? And good vendors will be there to tell you that. They'll be there to say, hey, look, you're getting an ROI of 100% on this, but you could really kick it up to about 150 if you just did these 2 or 3 little things. Yeah,
I really like that, Roger. And what I like about it more than anything is that to that point where you started the conversation with, another thing that I've got to try and implement in my busy schedule that I already have. To me, then the questions that is posed to you after you've asked the vendor, what's my ROI? What am I going to get out of this? Is this guy, how can I not do this? How can I not put in a biometric scanner if I can save 10% of my payroll costs? And you look at payroll is 55% of the expenses at your club. How can you not want to save 5% or 10%, whatever that number might be that they say you're going to save. So I think it puts you in a different frame of mind as opposed to, oh man, I ain't got time for this stuff. I don't want to do this. To go, how can I not do this? And then, and then how do you sell? It's so easy to sell to your board afterwards. Look, if we do this, this is the return we're going to get from this. This is the benefits of this. And as opposed to it's the latest technology everybody's doing. And the board goes, well, we're not everybody. You're saying, but here's what we're going to get. Harder for them to say no as well if you're trying to pitch them on the capital cost to buy something.
Right. And now look, that chapter in that book is called Innovate or Die. Is it not?
Yeah, it is that.
And so innovate or die. And in this context, a lot of clubs and the golf industry in general is, a lot of people say it's suffering death by 1,000 cuts, right? And so these tiny little operational efficiencies where you can find 2 or 3% here and there, these are the sorts of things that stave off survival mode for your club if you're in that way, but also help a club that's already prosperous, help them thrive even more.
Yeah. And Roger, what we've talked about has no impact on that member touch, that member experience, that face-to-face, that personal touch that we do at clubs. These were all back-of-the-house opportunities for us to be better, more efficient, and save money. Has no impact other than for some members, they're going to like what it's going to provide for them. But it doesn't stop you from still touching a member on the shoulder and asking them how their day is, or a staff member doing that.
Right. And, if anything, Jim, it might even give you more time to do that.
That's exactly what it does. Great point, Roger.
Cool. Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Engaged Club. If you like what you heard, share it with your friends in the club business, and get in touch with us. You can either email us, hello@engagedclub.com, or swing to engagedclub.com and join our Slack channel. We'd love to have a conversation with you over there. Until next time, thanks for listening.
This has been the Engaged Club podcast with Jim Hope and Roger Kincaid. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. If you like what you heard, share it with your fellow club managers and operators. Until next time, thanks for listening.